Welcome back to the Empowered Learning Podcast, where we explore the stories and strategies that empower you to lead, grow, and live with intention. Today's guest is Andrew Panella, certified personal trainer, nutrition coach, wellness coach, and founder of Longevity EDU. But Andrew's journey didn't start with health mastery. It started with struggle. After battling chronic inflammation and undergoing multiple surgeries, Andrew spent nearly a decade searching for answers. When the traditional system didn't deliver solutions, he turned to something simple but powerful: books. Hundreds of books later, he rebuilt his health, transformed his mindset, and built a full-time coaching business, helping others do the same. Now, with a community of over 130,000 people, Andrew teaches that curiosity may be the true fountain of youth. Let's get into it.
Hello, Andrew. How are you today, sir?
I am doing well, Andy. Thanks for asking. How about
You
yourself?
bet. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. We have a powerful name on the other side there, so I'm digging it that way as well. So awesome. So we just met, but sounds like we're going to have lots and lots to talk about. So let's dive right in. What does self-discipline look like for you in a typical day? We're going to get into your day-to-day stuff, which for those that don't know yet, you are in for an absolute treat. But self-discipline for you is probably very different than a lot of other folks. And how do you balance that with learning and doing? So that's kind of a two-part question. What does it look like? And then how do you balance? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Wow, yeah, great question right out the gates.
hmm
So there is a framework. I'm not remembering the exact name of it, but it basically gives you a couple of different buckets that you have in your life.
Okay.
Right? You have your health, you have your career, you have your family, and then I think the other bucket is like entertainment or personal
hmm
interests. And you're given a certain number of balls that you can put in these buckets and asked to allocate them, but you have this constraint of having, let's say, 10 balls, right? And four buckets. And so when I think about self-discipline and how I structure my days, my priorities change a little bit on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I'm married. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I have a son on the way in the next month or two. I'm running a
Congrats.
business full time. I have a lot of clients. I absolutely love to learn. Health for me is the foundation of all of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so in order to balance those buckets on a day-to-day basis, I have to be taking into account, okay, I never want my health to slip,
Right.
because if it does, then my responsibilities as a husband and a father and a business owner all
Sure.
slip. But those are still huge priorities for me, right?
hmm
So it doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean I'm going to be able to meditate on a daily basis
hmm
or drink the amount of water that I want on a daily basis or
hmm
exercise every single day. And so I think it's really a juggling act where the hierarchies shift, always
Yep.
keeping in mind that health is the foundation of all of it. Family for me is the number one priority. But again, health sort of goes into that because if I'm not healthy, I can't take care of my family. And then beyond that, it's business and
Mhm.
learning and self-improvement.
Right.
And for me, learning and self-improvement go hand in hand, right?
hmm
So
hmm
many challenges that I've personally run into in my life, I've been able to solve
mm
through reading and learning
Mm.
and
Okay.
just being relentlessly curious about asking questions about certain things. And so that's how I balance learning and doing on a day-to-day basis. It's okay, I love to consume information and read and listen to podcasts, and that's all good. But I also need to be doing certain things. I need to be
Mm.
implementing the things I learn about
Right.
health. I need to be implementing the things I'm learning about parenting or business or relationships in
hmm
order to, and to me, implementing and doing is how you solidify the learning.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And I'm sure this is, to your point, day to day is going to change a little bit, but um, I guess on the challenging days, I don't know if I'm sure you've had those before, but like, I don't know if I'm as voracious as you are, but I too love to learn and love to read and I love to consume new knowledge. Um, there is a balance, and that's kind of why I wanted to start with this question because it's very easy to kind of just that's your comfort zone, right? I mean, it's easy to consume information. It's much harder to then apply that and actually put it into practice. So, any tricks along the way of actually, getting off out of the learning mode and into the doing mode? I don't know, for some other people that's a hard shift.
Yeah, good question. So I like something called the minimum viable action. I don't know
Okay.
where I heard it. Maybe I made it up. I probably read it somewhere, but I talk about it with clients all the time, which is whether or not your goal is to exercise more or practice more mindfulness or
Okay.
read more. the first thing you should do is come up with what is the minimum viable action. It could be
Mm,
as simple as reading one page of a book or
okay.
doing 10 bodyweight squats or closing your eyes and counting your breathing for a
Right.
minute. And so I really lean into that when it comes into the doing side of the equation because my schedule's in flux a lot. And
Mhm.
like I said, I can't necessarily do everything I want to on a day-to-day basis. I think very few people can. And
Right.
so if it's deciding between making dinner or breakfast is a better example because I usually try and read in the morning. But
Okay.
if I get up at 5 a.m. and I want to read, but my daughter also gets up, it's tough luck. I'm reading her
Sure.
mermaid books to her. So it's just a matter of can I squeeze in 2 pages when
Mhm.
she's eating her breakfast later on, or
Mhm.
would I rather be present with her too, right? Like
Right.
there's
Yeah.
that balance of doing and being in
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
moment and not
Yep.
feeling like you always need to be sort of making progress. But yeah, the concept of having a minimum viable action
Yeah.
for that'll progress you towards these different goals or
Right.
just allow you to engage in certain things like learning or reading
Right.
as a hobby has been really helpful for me and also for clients too. Just feeling like, okay, I don't need to go do a 30-minute workout. I could do a 5-minute workout because I
Mhm.
don't have as much time as I want. So
Right. Right.
that's something I lean on a lot.
Right. And it's the idea of, you know, small, consistent steps are better than, massive action very infrequently, right? I'm envisioning like a meme that I saw that was like consistency beats intensity, and it was like this fire, right? It's like these little bitty flames, consistent, 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 or this massive flame that just burns out, and then you have nothing for six months or whatever the case, whatever the time frame is, and I, again, speaking from personal experience, I have gone through those different seasons of life and seasons of, excitement about a certain thing, and it's really easy to pour into something um, intensely for a short amount of time, but maintaining that consistency. And I love this, the minimum viable action. Identify what that is. What are your non-negotiables? At no time will I allow myself to do less than X, right? And then on a given day, right, you may have a lot more than that, but at least you're making those steady steps towards your goals. I love that.
Yeah. The other thing that it's really valuable for is when I'm talking to people about motivation, I have a lot of people that come to me just feeling like, I know I need to make all these changes. I'm feeling
Hmm.
super overwhelmed. I don't feel like I have the motivation to do the things I need to or make the
Hmm.
changes I need to make. The minimum viable action, a lot of people don't fully recognize that action is what generates motivation. You don't
Ah, I love
wait for
that.
motivation to then
Hmm.
take action. It's those actions that then jumpstart the motivation engine. And so the minimum viable action is also a great way, as you just said, to start building that consistency. Like it starts with a really small flame and then you can fan it into a bonfire, but it
Hmm.
starts with something very small. And so
Right.
if you're feeling stuck in any way, shape, or form,
Hmm.
having that minimum viable action, which could be different for everybody,
Sure.
is a really helpful way just to feel like you're moving in the direction
Mhm.
and generating some motivation, and then you can take bigger actions.
Right, right. No, I love that. That's brilliant. Okay, well, y'all, if that does not get you excited about the rest of the conversation, then I don't know what your problem is. You can go and do your other things, but Andrew and I are going to have a fun rest of our conversation. So I invite you to stay tuned because that's just the beginning. We got lots more fun things to talk about. So, Andrew, you said that you are a voracious reader. You say 30 to 40 books a month, and that just boggles my mind. So, walk us through your process of how you choose books, how you retain I mean, we talked a little bit about that minimum viable action. I'm sure you have time set apart, and is it 50 pages a day or is it 100, whatever the case is. And again, kind of back to what we talked about, it's great to consume all this knowledge, but how are you applying that when you have so much information flying at you?
Yeah, so really good question. And this all started for me after I went through my own health journey where I
Okay.
had a ton of chronic inflammation going on. I was 50 plus pounds overweight. I was just feeling extremely stuck. I got a bunch of surgeries. And so I was bedridden at the time. I was working a
Mm,
remote job, thankfully. Otherwise, I would have been in really big trouble.
hmm.
But in my spare time, I didn't have a TV in the bedroom and I just felt like I don't want to be sitting scrolling on my phone. So I just
Hmm.
started reading books. And it all started because I was looking for answers as it relates to my health. So I started reading nutrition books and exercise physiology books, trying to learn like why are my joints breaking down? Why do I have all this inflammation? So fast forward, that became a ritual to me. So it initially was a routine, but then it started to develop some real meaning to it, which is one of the
Mm-hmm.
key components to moving a routine to a ritual. And so it started with each morning, I would sit in the same spot. I'd get up, I'd stretch, I'd sit on the couch, I'd have my coffee, I'd read 30 to 50 pages. And at the time, it was all health books.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was before I have kids, the
Mm-hmm.
schedule's a little bit different now, but I
Mm-hmm.
have really retained that love for
Mm-hmm.
learning first
Mm-hmm.
thing in the day. And so when it comes to choosing books, I'm always keeping my eye out for book recommendations from friends, book references in other books. So
Mm-hmm.
I find it's kind of this waterfall effect where if you start
Right.
reading certain books, all of a sudden by the end of the book, you have four other books that were referenced in that one book. And so I just sort of add them to my Kindle or my Amazon
Mm-hmm.
list for a rainy day. And I'm usually reading four or five books at a time, but they're different
Mm-hmm.
categories, right? Like
Okay.
I'll have a fantasy book just to shut my mind off and wind
Okay.
down before I go to bed. I'll have a book on nutrition. I'll have a book on exercise physiology or muscle hypertrophy. I'll have a book on mindset. I'll have a book on business. I'll have a book on sales. And
Mm-hmm.
so depending on where I am at in my life or what problems I'm trying to solve for myself, for my business, for my family, for my clients,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I choose what books to read. A lot of it is very intentional. The fantasy is a little bit more grab bag. It's like, okay, cool, I'll read this sci-fi book or this fantasy book.
Mm-hmm.
But the other books are really intentional to try and solve problems. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
also very intentional about stopping books when I have an answer to a problem and not reading
Interesting.
that book again until
Okay.
I've tried that attempt and
Okay.
so or attempted that answer. So
Right.
that happens a lot in the bit with the business books. I may have a business
Mm-hmm.
book that I read for 20 days straight, and then I come
Mm-hmm.
across the answer to a problem I've been trying to solve that I know is going to
Mm-hmm.
take me 20 days to implement. And I put that book down and it
Right.
sits in my sort of like, book backlog. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't pick it up again until I've actually
Right.
solved for that problem
Yeah.
or tried that thing.
Right.
Um, One thing I found to be really helpful is rereading either the same books or the same concepts. My wife always jokes because she's a PA, she works in healthcare too. And so she's like, you always read so many books on nutrition. Isn't it all the same information?
Mm-hmm.
The rate at which you expose yourself to the same information
Mm-hmm.
is how your brain remembers that information. I forget the name
Okay.
of the actual concept
Mm-hmm.
that's referring to that, but
Right.
by reintroducing similar or almost identical information over and
Mm-hmm.
over again, if it's a
Mm-hmm.
monthly or bi-monthly interval,
Sure.
it's just become stuff that I remember more deeply. So,
Right.
the last thing I'll say on that is the amount that I read on a daily basis varies. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing if my daughter's taking a nap and I have some free time and I can sit down and
Mm-hmm.
read like 100 and 150 pages. That's incredible, but very
Right.
rare, maybe like
Sure.
once or twice a month.
Right.
Most days I'm getting in 10 to 20 pages and
Mm-hmm.
or it might be like 10 pages in the morning, 20 pages at night.
Right.
So it's different on a day-to-day basis depending on
Right.
time. But I
Right.
really do try to make it a non-negotiable to at least read
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that just popped in my head, I've had a few friends just ask me, they're like, "Man, how do you read so many books?" As I always say to them, I'm like, "Do you go to the bathroom?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when you go to the
Yeah.
bathroom?"
Right.
Most people bring their phone and scroll social
Sure.
media.
Sure.
I bring a book.
There you
And so
go.
for me,
Choices.
there's a default 5 pages each day.
Right, right. That's very true. It's very true. Kind of where you put your priorities, and to your point, you talked about before. What would you call it? Rituals into routine into ritual, right? What is your routine when you go to the bathroom? Is it scrolling, social media and playing a game, or is it filling your mind with whatever? I'm sure you've probably heard this, and if you've never heard of Headway, I think you're more on the idea of like let's consume the entire book. I kind of like bite-sized aspects of things. Headway is a really cool app. There's been different ones that are out there, but it condenses nonfiction down into 10 or 15-minute audio portions, or you can kind of read them, so you get kind of the gist of that. And it's their new way that they kind of spin it is micro learning, right? Rather than just mindless scrolling, do micro learning. I think that's kind of really what you're doing, right? Didn't have maybe a moniker for it, but you are micro learning all of these different sessions, different books, depending on the day and where you're at. But just using your time in a beneficial way rather than a mindless way. I think it kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah, I love the concept of micro learning. I haven't heard of that. I experimented with Blinkist, which
Yeah,
is I
same
think
exact idea. Yep,
a
yep.
similar app.
Hmm.
For me, it was just another reason to be on my phone,
Hmm.
and so that was sort of the deal breaker.
Didn't do it for you.
That's
I
part of
got
the
you.
reason I think I have really retained the reading habit. Is it's just
Mhm.
I'm on my computer and my phone all day for work
Right. The break.
and life, right? Like all of
Hmm.
us. And so for me, I'm like, okay, if I can just like hold a physical book
Hmm.
for 10 minutes of my
Right.
morning before
Right.
I'm diving into technology, then there's a benefit to that too.
I love it. No, I completely agree. Completely agree. So, shifting gears a little bit, but kind of staying in this idea, you have said that curiosity is your superpower. I love that analogy, and I can tell from talking to you that I think it's very, very true, and that idea of being curious is also kind of the fountain of youth. So, what sparked that belief? Where did that come from, and how has that like shaped your life thus far?
Yeah, so I mean, I really feel like I have to give credit to my grandfather who passed away just in the last couple of months, rest in peace, but he was a huge influence on my life
Hmm.
and my obviously my entire family. And so he was always learning and reading. He was a business owner. This guy, you could have talked to him about any subject and he would know at least something about it.
Hmm.
And so I just remember having many conversations
Hmm.
that are now great memories for me where he was just sharing stuff with me and I kept thinking to myself, how do you know this? And
Hmm.
his response is always like, well, there's tons of good books on this. And so he was a lifelong learner, and even when he passed away when he was 96, I went and spent 6 or 7 hours with him, which was super fortunate to be able to do that.
Hmm.
And the whole time we talked about, he was reading 4 different books at the time, 96. He knows he's going to pass, his body's failing him, so he
Sure.
knows he's going to pass away any day. He's still reading like
That's
3 or 4
awesome.
different books. He's talking to me about business strategy. He's
Hmm.
asking me my whole approach to sales and marketing. And oh, what
Love
about
that.
client retention? Do you know your acquisition? Like,
It's
and I'm
sharp in
like,
attack, this guy. I love it.
it was unbelievable. And
That's really
so,
cool.
and that's just like one of my last interactions with him. But all
Right.
throughout my life, I had exposure to that through
Yeah.
him. And so I think he was probably the biggest influence on me when it came to just creating this curiosity for everything. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I fully recognized that until recently. And like when
Yeah.
I told you curiosity is my superpower, I don't say that in an arrogant way. I just love learning about stuff. It's
Yeah.
like some mornings I wake up and for whatever reason, I'm like, I really want to learn about Genghis Khan's battle tactics this morning, or like, it's just like the most random thing
Yeah.
you could possibly think of. And part of that's because I like to collect random books on topics that I hear at one point, and then
Okay.
I'll go to the bookshelf and be like, what catches my eye, read a couple backs.
Hmm.
But so I really believe, again, I saw that firsthand with my grandfather, who took good
Hmm.
care of himself at the same time, but
Right.
I really believe his curiosity was a major driver in him
Mm.
making it to 96 with his
Hmm.
faculties to be
Right.
that mentally sharp.
Sure.
At the same time, I think that's something that you'll hear from a lot of people that are centenarians, people that
Mhm.
retain their mental faculties
Right.
and live to be over 100. These
Right.
people are playing games, they're having
Hmm.
intellectually stimulating
Right.
conversations with their community, with their family members. Um, in my book, that's the last chapter of the book, is talking about the fountain of youth being curiosity. And I give an example of this guy I'm forgetting his name, but I remember reading an article about him. He's 100 years old. This guy plays ping pong every day. And when he was asked, what's your secret? And the guy just said, I'm just curious. I just want to learn things. I just
Hmm.
want to play games. And so that's something that I've really resonated with.
Hmm.
Part of it is validation, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, great. Maybe I'll live longer because I like
Right.
learning.
Yeah.
So
No, I love
but
it.
I believe it has a lot of roots. I believe there's a lot of validity to it.
Right. No, it sounds like it. So I appreciate you sharing that about your grandpa. That's awesome to have such wonderful memories and things that you can kind of carry on that legacy. So I appreciate that. You mentioned your book. I know that just came out. It's same as your the name of your business. So tell us about the longevity lifestyle. Kind of two parts here. You can do book business or business book, whichever one you'd like to do first.
Yeah, I mean, I decided to, so I've been thinking about writing this book for 5+ years. And the reason that I was feeling like it needed to be done, number one is, I mean, in my life, I have a lot of what I call side quests where
Yeah.
I just want to do these things that aren't necessarily related to my business or
Hmm.
so that was one of them was to write this book. And that came up about 5 years ago. And it was because I kept reading all of these different books that would focus on different topics as they relate to health and longevity and human performance.
Hmm.
And I just felt like, where is the master book that has all of
Okay.
this
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
really succinct way that also allows me to just take away, like, okay, this is the punchline. This is the key takeaway for this specific topic. And then here are some ways to implement it. And I read a couple books that were close, but I felt like there were some gaps in there. So that was why I wrote it. I just felt like there was a gap based on all the books that I had read. And again, I'm sure there's a similar book that does exist out there that I just didn't come across. But I
Hmm.
felt like this is the book that I was looking for when I was laying on the bed after my fourth surgery,
Right.
trying to figure out what is going on with my body. And so
Hmm.
that was why I wrote it. And then
Right.
the way that the publishing company uh, wrote books, basically helped people produce books was with audio. So as you can tell, I
Okay.
love talking about this stuff.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I got on and did like 12 or 14 hours of recordings
Wow.
with them where
Okay.
I just was spitballing and talking about all
Hmm.
these different topics. I mean, I had bullet points, but
Yeah.
that then turned into the manuscript for the book. And so
Oh,
that
okay.
was a really cool way for me to take this amorphous idea I had in my
Hmm.
head
Hmm.
and then actually have something
Hmm.
tangible to work with. And so I'm really proud of it. It's something I worked on for, I mean, again, it was an idea for about 5 years, and then it took about 6 or 8 months to bring it to fruition.
Hmm.
But I'm really excited about it because I love what I do from a coaching standpoint, but obviously you
Hmm.
can't possibly coach everybody, and not
Right.
everybody wants a coach or can afford a
Sure.
coach. So for me, to give people a, $10 Kindle option or $20 paperback option to try and
Right.
get some insights to improve their health, it felt like a no-brainer.
Right. I want to come back to the business, but I don't want to skip over this because I think I'm sure it's an important aspect of your journey. You've mentioned the five surgeries before, and you in that process when you were just kind of on your back, couldn't do anything else, that you just became this voracious, reader and trying to learn, how to overcome this, how to go do this a different way. So I'm sure this will lead into back to the business, but I would love to know either one or two just breakthrough moments when you're just sitting there of like, there's got to be a better way. I want to help people, not go down this same painful road that I've done. I'd love to hear your breakthrough moment in the midst of all those surgeries.
Oh man, good question. You know what immediately comes to mind, which is I'm going to run with, is when I
Mhm.
first learned about intermittent fasting.
Okay.
So my whole life, I was told you got to eat 3 meals a day. Breakfast is the
Hmm.
most important meal of the day. And this was one of the first couple books I've read. And to be clear, on the voracious reading point, I started reading these books in a very selfish way. Like I'm trying to
Oh
solve
yeah.
my own
Yeah.
problems,
No.
right?
Yeah.
It
There's
just
no
trickled
judgment.
into, okay,
Cool.
breadcrumb
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Hmm.
continuing to move forward. But intermittent fasting was one of those first breadcrumbs where it's logically made so much sense to me. I'm like, of
Hmm.
course our ancestors didn't have access to food all the time. Why am
Hmm.
I being told that I need to eat all the time? And I
Hmm.
was eating healthy, right? I just
Yeah.
was, there was a lot of variables, but that was one that I think was also just a huge lever for my health improvements because at the time I'm bedridden. So
Hmm.
I can't eat too much because I can't exercise.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
that was an immediate big breadcrumb for me where I was like, okay, I'm going to try this intermittent fasting thing. And then within
Mhm.
like a week or two, I started feeling much better. It was like I could see
Interesting.
my body leaning
Right.
out a little bit. And it wasn't a huge shift, right? I just was like, all right, I'll compress my meals to a 6 or 8 hour window during the day.
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
was a huge breakthrough for me. And I think on one level, it gave me a lifestyle change. On the other
Hmm.
level, it really shifted my mindset to like look around my life and feel like, what else have I been just operating on with that
Hmm.
an assumption without
Yep.
actually challenging it? Because that was a
Hmm.
big one for me.
Right.
And that's something I talk to all my clients about. I mean, it's not for everybody every
Hmm.
day, but it is
Yeah.
something that I think is a really powerful tool, and it certainly was for me.
Right. I have an interesting connection point. We don't have to go too far down this road, but it reminds me because we're coming at this from a little bit different angles. But you had mentioned when that light bulb moment came off of like, oh my gosh, this intermittent fasting, it makes sense. Historically, I feel all better all of a sudden. But then you start asking the question, well, why was I doing it this way, right? What information has been fed to me that I thought this was normal? And again, I won't go too far down a rabbit hole of my choosing at this point, but I find that in my own personal coaching is that people are so assured that what they've been told is true that sometimes it's really hard to I don't know, in a kind, loving way, hold up a mirror and be like, but is it true? Is it really? Have we been sold a bill of goods, or is there possibly a better way, a different way to look at something that could yield much better results in your health, in your finances, in your other thing? But I think all of it starts, and I'd love to get your thought on this. I guess coming to a close on this thought, how much of it comes down to are you in a mental mindset place where you are open to hearing different ways or different paths to success?
Yeah, I love that point. I love that point. And there are two people that stand out to me as having had a huge influence on my own mindset. One
Hmm.
being Adam Grant, who's a pretty
Okay.
famous psychologist. He's got a couple books. Another being Tom Bilyeu, who's an entrepreneur. He's a mindset guy. I love his content. But the two of them are always preaching the importance of updating your belief system
Mm.
and recognizing your frame of reference. So for me, one thing that I've tried to do, and this is actually it's basically the first and second chapter of my book, are just talking about relying on first principles and radical open-mindedness. But for
Hmm.
me, I think a lot of people identify with their beliefs. They feel like
Yes.
I believe this thing and therefore like I am this thing. And
Hmm.
this is a really helpful framing that I think I got from Tom Bilyeu where he said your best bet is actually to identify with being the person that is so readily willing to update their beliefs
Mm.
that you're just never going to get offended by somebody that's challenging your beliefs. Because it's like, oh, you have a belief that might be better than mine? Perfect. I want to update mine or I want to strengthen mine. So let's just talk through it. Let's reason this
Hmm.
from first principles. I want to understand your perspective. And
Hmm.
that has served me really well. And it's
Hmm.
also been really fun, right? And I think
Hmm.
it's especially important with the political climate. Everyone's like immediately on one side or the other.
Right.
I'm just like, listen, I just want to hear the best ideas. So
Right.
I'm not going to get offended. I hope you won't get offended. Let's just talk through this stuff
Hmm.
and be radically open-minded in the
Right.
process.
Right. So that's kind of a perfect segue to one of my next questions here. It's a little bit further down my list, but this is kind of a fun twist on this, right? You've talked about the importance of mindset shifts and this kind of stuff, updating your mind, your belief system. If you could, Andrew Panella, gift the world one mindset shift, only one, what would that be?
I think it would be the power of integrative thinking,
Okay, tell me more.
meaning meaning you have two opposing ideas. You have idea A and idea B. The power of integrative thinking is saying there are some good ideas and bad ideas within idea A, and there are some good ideas and bad ideas within idea B. So
Okay.
I'm going to create idea C that
Mm,
takes the
mm,
good ideas from
yep.
both and becomes a
Right.
completely new model that you view the world or a new perspective. And I think that is not only is it fun, it's
Hmm.
stimulating, it's empowering when you're not like, oh, I don't have to like identify. I'll just go back to politics. I don't have to
Hmm.
identify with one political group. I could say, well, these are good ideas and these are good
Hmm.
ideas. You know,
Hmm.
it's avoiding black and white thinking.
Yeah. Right. Right. I completely agree, and I definitely think along the lines of you brought up political things or just health things or finance. I mean, just there's a lot of mindset people maybe are unaware of them, but there's a lot of mindsets that people just carry around with them, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think some of them are easier to shift than others. I don't know if we want to go down the religious one, but I kind of would like to get your opinion on that because you mentioned that people are this belief, right? We are this thing. It's not just, hey, I believe this certain thing, but I'm not that. I am not this. It's just this is my current belief at this point. How would you, because I'm sure in your coaching, you have come into contact and you have people that are working with you that have very strong religious beliefs. How do you incorporate this while also recognizing and valuing their staunch beliefs in whatever religion they have that they hold true?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, religion for some people can be a sensitive topic, especially now.
Hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of
Yeah.
polarization around religions. The way that I look at religion, so there are certain things, first of all, I think there's a ton of overlap in
Mhm.
almost every religion out there. Like treat people the way you want to be treated. For the most part,
Correct.
every religion is
Right.
teaching that. So I think that's really important that people recognize there are more similarities
Hmm.
across religions than there are differences. So regardless of what religion that you identify most with, chances are you overlap in what you identify with almost every other religion.
Hmm.
So that's something that I always keep in mind. Um, I also look at religion as a really, so I obviously don't mean this to offend anybody, but I find it to be a really powerful concept for unifying large groups of people.
Hmm.
So there's something called Dunbar's number, which
Okay.
is the number is like 150. And the concept is basically like you can't really hold more than 150 connections in your life beyond like what your psyche will allow you to. You just can't
Okay.
keep track of that many people and interests. Religion is one of, if not the only, unifying, I don't even know
Mm.
what to call it, like unifying principle that allows you to go beyond that number. Because if you identify with Christian beliefs, just for example, you can meet somebody across the world that speaks a different language that also identifies with Christian beliefs, and immediately you have some degree of camaraderie with them.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's a really powerful thing. And whether or not how deep your beliefs go, I think that's something that everybody
Mm.
gains benefit from having is a belief system that allows them to connect with other people around the world. And again, most of them are built around this idea that everybody wants to live a better life than
Hmm.
the people before them. They want to pass on a better, healthier
Right.
existence to their kids. They want to treat others with respect and have
Sure.
respect. And so, yeah, I think religion has a lot of utility. And I
Hmm.
think I mean, there's a lot of value to be gained from it, regardless of what your religion that you
Right.
most associate with.
Yeah, no, very, very well answered. And I think you're exactly right. It doesn't have to, doesn't have to be the dividing factor that we often make it into. So, I have three key questions. I always ask all of my guests, which we're going to get to in a second. But before we do that, I want to make sure and just give you opportunity if there's anything else that you would like to share with listeners, how to connect with you, where to get the book, how to find you on your website. You've got coaching services. Just give us your spiel as to if someone's really vibing with what you're talking about, how can they connect with you best?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Andrew Panella on almost every social platform
Okay.
out there. The tagline's a little bit different, but if you search my name, you'll find me on almost any social platform. I post almost every day on every platform. I have a content team. All of it is surrounding different principles within health
Mhm.
and mindset and performance and longevity. My book is The Longevity Lifestyle. That is a summary in a very entertaining way. I tried to deliver it in. You can find that on Amazon, and it's a fairly easy read. There's a lot of graphics, there's a lot of key frameworks and protocols and implementation guidance. And my website is longevitylifestyle.me. That's where I run most of my coaching through. So I do one-on-one coaching. I also have a group slash community where there's a lot of these frameworks and principles that are available just through video format. And we do Q&A and group calls. So there's a lot of different things I do to try and help people. Most of it is centered around elevating their health and their mindset and ultimately empowering people through education. And that's one of
Mhm.
the reasons, Andy, that I got really attracted
Right.
to come on this podcast is just
Yeah.
because I believe that education and knowledge is freedom. And that's
Mm.
was true in my own life. And I see it with my clients where
Right.
just teaching them basic principles about maybe it's metabolic health or mindset, those are some of the things that create lasting change, not just
Mhm.
short-term results. So,
Right.
anyways, longevityLifestyle.me is my website. The
Okay.
Longevity Lifestyle is my book on Amazon, and I'm Andrew Panella on every social platform.
There we go. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Andrew. That was awesome. I knew that from the little bit that we got to talk beforehand that this was going to be a fun conversation. And like we said right before we kicked off the recording, your energy and what it is that I'm trying to put out in the world of just empowering learning, where this was a fit for perfect fit, better to say. So let's wrap up with our three key questions. Number one, who is a leader that you most admire and try to, I'm sorry, most admire and try to emulate? There we go. Yeah.
So, I'm going to go with my grandfather here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he was somebody that always bestowed really powerful lessons on me and my
Hmm.
whole family. And
Right.
to the point where I have a whole book of his ideas on my bookshelf.
Love that.
So the curiosity was something I got from
Hmm.
him. The entrepreneurship was something I got from him. He was always somebody I remember when I was really young. He used to encourage me to say yes to things.
Okay.
So I don't even know if he was realizing it. I'm sure he was, but when I look back on it, it was a way that he was teaching me to break down limiting beliefs. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that whether it relates to your health or business or family or finances, limiting beliefs are something everybody deals with.
Yep.
And breaking them down is one of the most rewarding things.
Yeah.
And so getting that sort of lesson from him when it must have been 4 or 5 that he was teaching
Wow.
me the power of just saying yes and figuring
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
So that's something that's
Very
stuck with
cool.
me.
I love it. I love it. I appreciate you sharing that. As someone that also has a very wise and just honored grandfather, I can relate to a lot of those. So, second question on our list here: what learning? Oh, this is going to be a fun one for you. What learning has most impacted you in the last year?
I think probably a lot of the stuff that I've been learning about parenting
Okay.
and the brain health of children and
Okay.
child psychology, just having a daughter that's entering her terrible twos right now. And we're potty training her. It's just seeing and understanding more about how her mind works and her brain
Mhm.
works. I mean, obviously, I'll never fully understand what's going on there,
Right.
but learning from some child psychologists and
Hmm.
anthropologists, and it's just been really interesting to get some nuggets from experts out there
Right.
and actually apply those to
Hmm.
my parenting style, my
Right.
wife
Right.
and I's
Right.
parenting style, and see pretty tangible results and see
Hmm.
changes,
Right.
good and bad, right? It's like, oh, well,
Sure.
that wasn't really
That
working, or,
didn't work.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's been a lot of stuff just on the parenting side of things.
Hmm.
I read a good book recently called The Self-Driven Child. I want to say
Okay.
it's a New York Times bestseller, and it was covering a lot of content that I had read in other books. But like I said, I always like to just repeat content sometimes because it just
Hmm.
solidifies certain things. And I
Hmm.
thought that that was a really good one as far as the breadth of stuff that it
Hmm.
covered. So that was a really good one.
Yeah, love it. Appreciate it. Excellent. All right, last question. Which this has been fun. Kind of sad to see it come to an end, just because I think we could probably go for longer. But question number three: how would you empower learning for future generations?
This is something I say to everybody that asks me about solving problems, which is
Hmm.
almost every single one of my clients.
Right.
Somebody out there has either already solved the problem that you're dealing with
Okay.
or they've come very close. And the people that have done it already or are farther along in the journey, there's at least a handful of them that are sharing the stuff that they've learned or the things that have worked. So if you're feeling hopeless or you're feeling like you cannot figure out the solution to whatever challenge you have in your life, it doesn't have to be health related. It could be family related, it could be finance related, it could anything. Somebody out there has cataloged their experience and created some form of guide for you. And now that we have access to these amazing LLMs where you can basically go in and talk to a Grok or a ChatGPT or a Gemini and say, hey, I have all these problems. What are the best books?
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you can be hand-fed the best books out there for these problems. And if you're willing to learn and actually spend the time, even if it's 10 pages a day, and you just stick with that over the span of a couple of years, you would be shocked at the solutions that you'll find. So that's what I would leave people with, because I really feel, again, like curiosity is the fountain of youth. And part of that is not just keeping your brain sharp. Part of it is actually finding the solutions to the problems.
What is it? I think it's the most interesting man on earth. He says, "Stay thirsty, my friends." I think we should just switch that to "Stay curious, my friends."
I love it.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Well, Andrew, this has been an absolute pleasure. You are on to some amazing things here. I'm glad that our paths crossed. I look forward to continuing to just bounce ideas off each other and kind of share networks and this kind of stuff. And I have no doubt that this is a super helpful and useful topic for folks. So I'm excited to get this out and let everybody hear our conversation. So appreciate your time.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Andy. I appreciate you having me on. This is fun.
You bet. All right. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.
If this conversation with Andrew challenged you to rethink your health, your habits, or your priorities, don't let it stop here. Curiosity is powerful, discipline compounds, and health fuels everything. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs that reminder. And as always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building a life that aligns with what matters most. I'll see you on the next episode.